Before we get to today's episode, let me ask you, are you stuck on whether your story idea is book-worthy? Are you struggling to weave your scenes into one cohesive narrative? Or are you a serial starter who never quite makes it to the end? My free guide, Nail Your Story Idea, solves all three problems. You'll uncover your story's core in just 3 steps, create a rock-solid one-sentence premise, and get the confidence boost you need to finish what you start. Get yours free at nancypanuccio.com/idea. Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/idea. All right, let's get to today's episode. You don't need to write your scenes in order. You don't need to start with chapter 1. You don't need the perfect opening line. Start with whatever scene is calling to you, whatever moment is calling to you. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has the story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and book coach. Each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now, let's begin. Okay, you have an idea for a novel, but no idea how to actually start. You're staring at a blank page thinking, where do I even begin writing this? Maybe you have a character in mind. Maybe it's a premise that excites you. Maybe it's just a vague what if scenario that keeps tugging at you. So you start to write, and there's this gap between your idea and getting it on the page. Some writers try to leap directly from idea to first draft. They open a blank document, type chapter 1, and then they freeze. They don't know what to write. Eventually, they close the document in frustration. It sits on their hard drive, or they delete it, and they start something new. They have another idea, and the cycle repeats. Other writers go in the opposite direction. They spend months outlining, researching, world building, and character developing, convinced they need to know everything before they can even start. But they never actually write the book. Both approaches lead to the same result, not writing. So today I'm going to walk you through 5 steps to go from I have an idea to I'm writing my first scene. You don't need to know everything before you start. You just need to know 5 things. Once you have these 5 things, you can start writing today. So let's figure out how to get you from idea to page. Step 1, identify your starting point. Right now, you might describe your idea like this. My story is about a woman who discovers her husband killed his mistress. Or my story is about a veterinary student who joins a circus. Or my story is about a girl who goes to a boarding school for magic. These are starting points, the initial idea your story is built on, and it's a great place to begin. But a starting point alone isn't enough to actually start writing. You need to turn your starting point into a story by identifying 3 things. Number 1, who is your protagonist? Whose story is this? Number 2, what situation is this person in? What's happening to your character or around your character? And number 3, what conflict does this create? What problem or tension emerges from this situation? For example, your starting point might be a woman discovers her husband might have murdered his mistress. So the story situation is a woman finds evidence that her husband might have killed a local woman, but she's not sure. He insists he's innocent. Or the same starting point could become this situation. A woman discovers her husband murdered his mistress, and now he knows she knows, and she has to figure out how to protect herself and her son. Notice how the same starting point can become different story situations depending on what conflict you introduce. Here's another example. A starting point could be a veterinary student joins a circus. The story situation could be a veterinary student joins a Depression-era circus to escape his past, but he falls for the star performer and she's married to a violent man who runs the circus. See the difference? The story situation tells you what's actually happening. There's a protagonist in a specific situation facing a specific conflict or complication. So, describe your story in 2 to 3 sentences. Who's your character? What's the situation? And what's the conflict or complication? Now, you don't have to overthink this. Your first version doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to give you a starting point, a clear picture of who your protagonist is, what's happening to him or her, and what tension or problem emerges from that situation. Okay, step number 2. Know what your protagonist desperately wants. Now that you know your story's situation, you need to figure out what your protagonist wants because of that situation. This is different from step 1. Step 1 was about the situation your character is in. Step 2 is about what your character is trying to achieve or accomplish within that situation. Your protagonist needs to want something specific, not vague. Here's what I mean. If the story situation is a woman finds evidence that her husband might have killed a local woman, but he insists he's innocent and that he's being framed because he had an affair with her, that could be the situation. But what she wants throughout the story is to find out the truth without tipping him off that she suspects him. Another story situation could be a veterinary student joins a Depression-era circus and falls for the star performer, but she's married to a violent man. What he wants to be with the circus performer, which means either convincing her to leave her husband or finding a way to protect her from her husband. See how the desire flows from the situation? The situation creates the desire. Here are more examples. Here's a vague desire. She wants to find herself. A specific desire, she wants to win the national baking championship and prove her grandmother's recipes deserve recognition. A vague desire could be she wants to be happy. A specific desire, she wants to leave her abusive husband and start a new life. Why does this matter? Because your protagonist's desire is what generates your plot. Every scene in your novel should either move your protagonist closer to what he or she wants or create obstacles that push your character further away. When you get stuck and don't know what to write next, just ask, what does my protagonist want right now in this scene, and what's stopping him or her? That question will almost always unlock your next scene. So you want to make the goal specific. If you can't make it specific and urgent, keep asking, what does this person want? What would they risk everything for? What are they actively trying to make happen? That desire is your compass for the entire story. Okay, step number 3. Know generally how the story ends. Now, before you panic, you do not need to know the exact ending. You don't need to know every detail of how the story unfolds, but you need to know the general shape of the ending. Specifically, you need to answer, does your protagonist get what he or she wants or not? That's it. That's all you need to know. Here are some examples of the general shape of an ending. She escapes her marriage and starts over, but she realizes she can't run from her past. He finds out who killed his brother, but the truth destroys everything he believed about his family. She wins the championship, but in the process, she damages the relationships that matter most. She doesn't get what she wanted, but she discovers what she actually needed. You don't need to know how these endings happen. You don't need to know what scenes get you there. You just need to know the outcome in general. Why does this matter? Because knowing your destination gives you direction. When you're writing and feel lost, you can ask, am I moving toward the ending? If yes, keep going. If no, adjust. The ending might change as you write, and that's okay. Stories do evolve, so allow things to shift. But starting with a sense of where you're headed keeps you from wandering around aimlessly. So you want to ask, by the end of the story, will your protagonist succeed, fail, discover something, or realize something? If you can answer this even loosely, you're ready for the next step. If you have 3 completely different endings and can't choose, just pick one. You can always change it later. Okay, step number 4. Identify 3 to 5 scenes you're excited to write. This step is important. The scenes you're most excited to write, the moments you can visualize, the confrontations you can hear, the reveals you're dying to get to, these are your anchor points. They're what will pull you through the hard parts of drafting. So you need to identify at least 3 to 5 of these scenes before you start. Now, your anchor scenes might include the moment your protagonist makes an impossible choice, a confrontation between your protagonist and antagonist, a betrayal that changes everything, a romantic moment, or a heartbreak, the revelation that flips the story, the climactic showdown, or the emotional resolution. You don't need to know where in the story these scenes happen. You don't need to know how you'll get there. You just need to know what they are. Why does this matter? Because when you get stuck, and you will get stuck, you can skip ahead and write one of these anchor scenes. It keeps your momentum going and reminds you why you're excited about this story in the first place. Also, the scenes you're excited to write often reveal what your story is really about. So pay attention to what excites you. It's telling you something important about the story you're trying to tell. So list 3 to 5 scenes you can't wait to write. Be specific enough that you can visualize them, even if you don't know all the details yet. If you can't think of any scenes that excite you, if you only have a vague concept but no actual moments, keep thinking about your story until specific scenes start appearing in your imagination. Start free writing. Find those anchors. Those scenes are the fuel that will keep you writing. And step 5, just start writing. You've answered the 4 questions. You know what your story is about, what your protagonist wants, how it generally ends, and what scenes excite you. So now you start writing. But here's where writers freeze again. They think, okay, but what do I actually write first? And here's the answer. Write whatever scene has the most energy for you right now. You don't need to write your scenes in order. You don't need to start with chapter 1. You don't need the perfect opening line. Start with whatever scene is calling to you, whatever moment is calling to you. Maybe it's a scene with your protagonist doing something ordinary. Start there. Maybe it's a confrontation or a moment of change. Start there. It doesn't matter where you begin. You can always rearrange scenes later. Right now, you just need to get words on the page. Now, an important thing to keep in mind is do not edit as you write. Write your first scene start to finish. It will be rough. It will have awkward sentences, clunky dialogue, and vague descriptions. That's okay. Your job right now is not to write brilliantly. Your job is just to get something on the page, get the scene down, then move on to the next scene. Keep moving forward. After you write your first scene, ask yourself, what's the next thing I'm excited to write? Maybe it's the scene that comes next, or maybe it's one of your anchor scenes from a different part of the story. Write whatever has energy. Follow your excitement in the early stages. This is so important. Don't write what you think the reader wants or what will sell. Write the scenes that feel alive to you. You can fill in the connective tissue later. And when you get stuck, when you don't know what happens next, look at your anchor scenes and riff off one of those. And when you get stuck, when you don't know what happens next, just ask, what does my protagonist want right now? What's stopping him or her? That question will unlock your next scene. That's it. That's how you start. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to write one scene, then another, then another. Okay, before we wrap up, let me tell you what you don't need. You don't need a detailed outline. Some writers love outlines, and that's fine. A lot of writers need them. Others find them creative straitjackets. You don't need complete character backstories. You'll discover who your character really is by writing them. You'll figure out their voice. You'll figure out their quirks and their fears as you go. You don't need all your research done. Do the bare minimum research required to start, and then research as you go. When you need specific knowledge or details, research it or put it in the margins, research later. You also don't need to know every single plot twist. You know the general shape of your ending. That's enough. Some of the best moments in your story will surprise you while you're writing. And finally, you don't need the perfect opening lines. Your first draft opening will probably be not the one you end up with, and that's normal. You'll rewrite it later. Just start. The real reason most writers don't start isn't that they don't know enough. It's that they're afraid that the book will be bad. They're scared they won't finish. They're scared they're not a real writer. But here's the truth. You only become a real writer by writing. Not by writing the perfect book, but just by writing. So you want to give yourself permission to start before you're ready. Clarity comes through the act of writing. You're not going to get clarity before you write. So you're ready now. You don't need to know everything before you start. You just need 5 things. Number 1, what is your story situation? The character, the situation, and the conflict. Number 2, what does your protagonist desperately want? Number 3, how does it generally end? Number 4, what 3 to 5 scenes are you excited to write? And number 5, pick a scene and start writing it, the one that excites you. That's it. That's all you need. Once you have these 5 things in place, you're ready. Not someday, today. So stop preparing, stop waiting to feel ready. Open up a fresh document and write your first scene. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to exist. Trust me on that. It's going to get better the more that you get involved in your own material, the more you probe what you're trying to say. That's how novels get written, not by waiting until you're ready, but by starting before you feel ready and figuring it out as you go and allowing things to shift as you get deeper into your material. So for now, just focus on starting. Keep writing, and remember, there are no rules, only choices. You are making choices every step of the way. So allow things to shift as you get deeper into the writing. You're not going to get clarity on your story by just thinking about it or even writing an outline. You're going to get the most clarity from the writing itself. So dive in, explore what you have to say. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. If you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform. And if you're listening on Apple, please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.